Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Living Well or Trying to. I'm your host, Janet. Today's episode is a part 2 of a conversation that I had with astrologer Aliza Kelly. In part 1, last week, episode 45, we talked about astrology more broadly, how she got into it, and why it is so popular nowadays, or gaining a lot of popularity. In today's episode, we get into birth charts, what they are, how she reads them, and she even does a reading for me. So if you are someone who is also a Virgo sun, Aries rising, maybe you'll find this interesting. Or if you're just going through a time of transition, I think she offers a lot of interesting perspectives and an inspiring way to look at times of change in life. So yes, I hope you enjoy this episode. I would love to shift gears now and talk a little bit more about the application of astrology on the individual level. So back to kind of like the birth chart readings. Maybe we can go ahead and do that part now. I have my birth chart that I printed out.
Cool.
If you can maybe talk a little bit more, I think you already kind of went over what a birth chart is, but just a little bit of a summary. And then if we can kind of go into the reading section.
Sure. So a birth chart is a snapshot of the sky at your exact moment of birth. So everything that you see in this chart means something. Every single symbol, every number, all of these like alleged hieroglyphics, which they pretty much are because astrology is a symbolic pictorial language. Everything means something and everything can be interpreted as something. And then it's an astrologer's job to make meaning out of it and to figure out what the interpretation is. And most importantly, how it relates to you. So, Janet, you are a Virgo sun, you are an Aries rising, and you are a Sagittarius moon. You also have your Mercury in Virgo, you have your Mars in Virgo, and you have your Venus in Leo. Ooh la la. Janet, can you tell me how much you know about your chart?
Yes. So I've had a couple of birth chart readings done. And I am familiar with my sun sign being Virgo. I know that my moon is Sagittarius and that my rising is Aries. And I kind of understand that the rising sign is supposed to be kind of like what your soul is here to actualize into, or at least that's like one astrologer I had spoken with had kind of communicated it that way. And then also that my moon sign being in Sagittarius is reflective of like kind of how I generally am emotionally. Um, and then I've had readings done, but yeah, sometimes it's like I have them recorded and I interpret them one way when they happen, but it's been a while since I've had really any conversation or thoughts around my birth chart. And I'm going through some changes in life right now, as we are always, right? But yeah, so I just would be curious to kind of learn a little bit more from your perspective.
Cool. So, yes, the moon is absolutely how you emotionally internalize. It's how you feel about things. It's sort of what's going on the inside. I like that astrologer's interpretation of the rising sign. Um, I like to double down on the fact that the rising sign is not the mask you wear in public.
Mm.
Maybe that's going to be my next merch line because that
Yeah.
feels like it's a statement that I want to say all the time. Um, and the reason for that is because your rising sign is your perspective on reality. I like that your astrologer sort of framed it within the context of a soul because it is. I mean, it's very, very soul led and
Mm.
it's not a choice. I feel like when people talk about the rising sign as the mask they wear in public, it feels like a facade
Mm.
or something superficial. But your rising sign is really about like the lens through which you see the world.
Mm.
And as an Aries rising, you see the world as a place that you need to win. You know,
Mm.
you have, and there's a lot of interesting contradictions within your chart. And I say that like with like all the love in the world
Yeah.
because we love a chart with contradictions. It makes for interesting, complex, poetic people, right?
Mm.
Like no boring bitches over here. Like we want to have the nuance. Um, on one hand, you are someone who is very precise, very exacting, someone who is really wants to create a system for yourself
Mm.
that is going to be sustainable. You are a perfectionist. You are a really sort of, you're detail oriented. And then on the other hand, you're like, I don't want to be boxed in.
Yeah.
I don't want to be limited. I don't want to feel like I'm being sort of like, I don't want to be stuck. Also, why the fuck did they have all these opportunities? Have I been
Mm.
left behind? Like, how am I going to make up for lost time?
Mm.
Time is a really big thing for you, thinking about how you're spending your time, thinking about how you should be better spending your
Mm.
time. And that odd sort of back and forth between what it means to sort of like optimize your current experience with trying to create new experiences for yourself,
Mm.
not get bogged down by your day to day and make room for where you want to go, but also taking your day to day very seriously and recognizing that like that also informs the way you live your life. So there's sort of like a balancing
Mm.
act that you have to explore there. And then with again, back to this rising sign, your rising sign is about to get really lit up right now. It's already started. Neptune just went into Aries, as I mentioned, and Saturn just went into Aries as well. Both of these, Neptune has never been into Aries in your lifetime, my
Mm.
lifetime, anyone's lifetime that's currently living. Hasn't been there since the 1860s. For the past, like, 20 years, let's say, Neptune has been in your 12th house, which has been very deep, very spiritual, very internal. But now there's this vibration that's building within you of like, I'm tired of keeping this to myself. I want to share this with the world. I want to like be out in front of people. I want to do the thing. And Saturn, having just moved into Aries, which will be the first time that it's doing this since 1996, is going to emphasize that as well. You're soon going to be having Saturn move through your first house of identity and selfhood. And this is going to be like about fundamentally the mission here is like, how do you become more of yourself than you ever have before?
Mm.
And what does it mean to actually believe yourself, to support yourself, to be autonomous, right? To like actually do things your way rather than wait for others to give you approval.
Mm.
Um, with that, Saturn brings lessons. And I wouldn't be surprised if like the universe feels like it's like making things extra hard for you initially, because the point is that you need to prove yourself.
Mm.
So it's like giving you all these no's. It's giving you sort of like, what seems like stop signs or red lights, not because you're supposed to stop, but because you're supposed to be like, actually, I don't care. You
Mm.
know, like if you don't believe in me, I'm going to have to believe in myself. And
Mm.
maybe that's been the missing link for most of your adult life,
Mm.
is believing in yourself enough to do the things that you need to do. I will say that having Neptune as you do it in your birth chart right on your midheaven um, is really great for doing things that have to do with anything in entertainment.
Mm.
Um, you have enough Delulu within you to make like things that other people might not understand your
Mm.
reality. Of course, your Virgo quality is want to make it's like you want to make sure something's real and stable before you jump in. But I would say try to take some of the pressure off of that
Mm.
and try to jump in first, lead with that lovely Aries rising and that beautiful Sagittarius moon that wants to take those risks, especially right now, and trust that like you're not cuckoo, like you're not going to like set yourself up for failure. You're not going to
Mm.
go so far with something that it destroys your life. Like
Mm.
you have a checks and balances system in your chart that allows you to like roll it back when you need to, but don't roll it so far forward that you don't give yourself the runway to do what you want to do. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think especially when you're saying there's kind of the contradiction, that is something that I've constantly felt the whole like liking systems, liking structure, liking schedule, but then also feeling like I want to do things differently. And that also comes to play in my career. I've worked in a lot of different industries and kind of always going a little bit back and forth between something that's more traditional, more structured, very like logic driven, very grounded, versus something that's more creative and artistic and kind of like boundless. So that's something that I kind of always go back and forth between. And I'll have phases where I feel like, oh, this is a part of who I am and all of it is there for a reason. And then there are times where I'm just like, oh my God, do I even know what I'm doing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, where are you right now?
So I'm in another moment of transition in my career. Like I was, working with a group of friends on a media company, small media company full time. We were podcasting, content creating, and then we've since kind of gone on hiatus with that show. And I'm continuing to podcast myself and doing content creation, but it is so different in such a different way. And I'm kind of like mentally treating it more like a hobby, but then also not really sure, like, is this what I want to do full time? Should I look into going back into a corporate job. So there's a lot of like shift happening in my career. And then I'm going to be 40 soon. A lot of the last 5 years of my life were thinking about like family planning and wanting to find a partner, but I've been dating and it's not working out and I froze my eggs. So there's just so many things that I think are up in the air right now for me where I have a hard time figuring out like in a very concise way, like, what are my priorities? What is my, like, mission in life right now? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or there are days where I feel very strongly like I'm situated, I'm good, I know what I'm focused on. And then other days where I'm just like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing or what I want, or I don't know. It just keeps kind of going back and forth.
Which parts of you feel like you don't know if it's what you want?
Probably the more logical, like, feeling the more logical kind of like socially or society has told me perhaps like this is what I should be doing in my romantic life, in my career, and then kind of battling that. And it's been really hard for me to like hear my own voice or like when everyone is always like, what does your gut tell you? And I've had such a hard time like being in tune with my gut in like the last year. So that's
Yeah.
been,
Well, I would say that, like, I would say maybe the question is it logic or is it fear? You know?
mm,
Because logic is also a survival mechanism, right? Like, when we over logical something, when we sort of barrier it with, like, is does it make sense? Is it logical? Is it responsible? Is it practical? Like, that's a really good survival mechanism to ensure that we don't get hurt,
mm,
right? But maybe at the core of that is the fear that you're going to take a risk and it's not going to work out, the fear that you're doing something by yourself. Like, what if people don't like it? What if people don't like you? What if it's
yeah,
not as successful? Like, will you be embarrassed? Will you have wasted your time? Again,
yeah,
back to time as a big thing, right?
yeah,
And I think that thinking about, using that sort of like, is it logic or is it fear? And
mm,
starting to try to filter your thoughts through that
yeah,
rather than logic or creativity. Because I
mm,
don't think it's a matter, from my perspective in your chart, it's not a question of logic or creativity.
mm.
Structures are creative. You can create
Mm,
very, like, there's no saying, like, there's no world where if we create structures and systems for ourselves that reduces our artistry. In fact, it's
mm,
actually like it buttresses it. It's like
yeah,
it can enhance our creative initiatives and our creative process. So I don't think it's art or, you know, corporate. I think
mm,
maybe it's risk or failure,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and thinking about your risk tolerance more than anything. Because with the transits that are coming up in your chart, like, they are demanding that you take a risk.
mm,
They want you to. Obviously, you have the last word on it, like, you are going to be the decider as to whether or not you want to actually go for things or if you would rather play it safe. But I will say that if you don't take a risk, you're going to be still confronting these same questions in 5 years,
mm. I
in
feel
10
yeah, yeah,
years. It's
yeah,
just gonna keep going until you do it,
yeah,
because there's a part of you that, like, doesn't want that actually wants to try
mm.
and really commit.
Thank you.
Yeah. As it relates to love and relationships, you have a really cool transit that's happening, which is that Jupiter, which is the planet of abundance, and expansion, is about to move into Cancer, and it hasn't been there since 2013. So I'd be curious, thinking back to your life, what was
Mm.
going on in 2013? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I I was probably going through another big life shift. Had moved to New York City for like less than a year, was trying to make a big career transition, live in a new city, and then 2013 was when I made the decision, like, "Okay, I've tried this route and it's not working for me," and I came back to LA.
For
Um
less than a year?
Yeah, I know. Everyone that I talk to who goes to New York from California, especially, they're like, "It takes you a year to, like it, and then once you get past the hump, you'll, love it."
So what was
Um
the transition that you were trying then?
I was moving into advertising. I did like a boot camp program, and the whole idea was to go move out to New York City and work in advertising. And I kind of maybe like not sloppily, but like I think I navigated that as best as I could. But it was kind of challenging when was based in LA or like Orange County with my family, and New York is across the country. So there was the challenge of interviewing for jobs and you're not physically there, the timeline of the boot camp program that I did where I had the kind of like warm relationships and potential job offers that had a time based on them, but I was like not physically there, trying to figure out how to get there. I also had it was just kind of challenging for me to like leave my family at that time
Yeah.
too. So yeah, but at that point I had kind of admitted to myself, okay, I'm not loving New York. I think that if I had come here under different circumstances in a different time of my life, I would love it here. But my heart is just kind of more in California at the moment. So made the move back, and then kind of was navigating the whole I did end up working in advertising in LA, but then not loving it and was kind of trying to figure out what was next. So,
Yeah. Well, interestingly, with Jupiter going into Cancer, it activates the area of your chart that's associated with home and family.
mm,
Um, does your family still live here in Southern California now?
yeah.
And how do you feel being here as well? Do you still like it?
Yes, or I feel like after moving back, from New York since 2013, I've kind of told myself, like, my parents are, like, they're getting older, my sister just had a baby, and so it's really important to me that I'm, like, local and close enough to them. I've toyed with the idea of, like, okay, maybe it's, like, I can live in different places for, like, months at a time or something like that, but I feel a very strong sense of, like, my home base is going to be Los Angeles, Orange County, like, I don't wanna say forever, but kind of, I guess, like, for this next phase.
I feel like um, there's almost some work around needing to open your heart to letting someone else into the structures that you have in your life.
Mm,
And part of that is also going to be opening, like allowing yourself to step into their world too.
mm,
And having that sort of like reciprocity of flow of like, well, these are the things that are important to me. But it feels almost like there's a narrative around your family that like you need to be, you love them, you need to be near them. It's a non negotiable. And therefore, like, take it or leave it, like, that's the way it is,
mm,
you know? And almost as if that would be a burden for someone else to step into,
mm,
but it does like, there's no reason like, you love your family, you wanna be close to them, no problem, no big issue, th no stress at all, you know?
mm,
Someone else might love their family, someone else might not love their family, it doesn't matter. Like, your relationship with your family shouldn't be like a not like a barrier to entry for
mm.
you meeting someone and starting a new family with them, you
Yes.
know? Like you don't have they're not dating your parents.
Yeah.
They're not dating your sister, you know, like they're going to be dating you and then you have a relationship with your family and then eventually as you get closer they'll have a relationship with your family too. But
Yeah.
like you don't have to like try to stitch someone into your family life who is like this is the person that they've all been waiting for
Mm.
their whole life for you to bring home, you know? Like it's still for you
Yeah.
fundamentally, and it's about your future and sort of creating a new satellite for yourself so that you could still be close to your family, but ultimately not like within that same exact structure and unit. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that like, please keep dating people because your
Yeah.
chart, like, there's so many new cycles beginning.
Mm.
And if you want to find someone that you can ultimately start a family with, there's a lot in your chart right now that would indicate that this is a positive time to do it. Are you on dating apps?
I am, and it's not a great experience.
Yeah, no one wants to be. Like, no one
Yeah.
likes it. No one's like, if you like being on the dating apps, like, you're a sicko.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, no every people want to get the fuck out of
Yes,
there.
they're on it to get off the apps,
Yes,
yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Then you have these like chronic freaks who are on there and like they just want to be on there for the rest of life. Like,
Yeah.
don't date them. But yeah, I mean, I think just like continuing to be open to the possibility of meeting people on the dating apps in person, but just like open, that's the energy. It's like not
Mm,
about like, oh, I'm dragging, like, if you're dating me, you have to also love my dad. It's like, no, they don't have to. They
mm,
just need to love you. And the rest of it will be negotiated through time, right? You're just representing yourself here, not the whole
yeah.
family.
I think maybe that is because the experience of dating is, especially for me, like in the last 5 years, I've been in like kind of like more serious relationship after more serious, or like I'm dating with a lot of intention, right? So whereas in my 20s, I feel like I might have said I was looking for something serious, but I don't think I was really ready for that, or it was just more for fun, or like if this person fits into my life in that moment. But the last 5 years, I've really been like, I want to get married, I want to start a family, and so maybe sometimes like treating that too much almost like a project and trying to like be in touch with the emotions. And there's so much that I'm balancing too when I'm thinking about this person that would be, like someone that I want to spend the rest of my life with, someone that I could
Don't
see
even,
being.
don't,
It's like
don't,
doing it
don't,
too much.
don't do it's too much. It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I mean, like, I, I don't think that anyone would, I think that when you are dating in the second half of your 30s going into 40, like, everyone knows that like there's a journey here, like
Yeah.
everyone, like it's not like we're 22 and we're like fucking around
Yeah.
anymore. And if someone like that's like implicit, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Obviously it's good to sort of have those conversations earlier on
Yeah.
than later on around like, what are you looking for? What do you want? But people take you seriously.
Yeah.
You take yourself seriously. People take you seriously. And I don't think that you need to worry so much about like, how is this person going to slot into my existing reality? I
Mm.
think that it's more about like, who am I enjoying spending time with? Who am I having fun with? Do they want the same things as me? Do I know that they want the same things as me? Cool. Let's keep doing it,
Yeah.
because that's the ride, right?
Yeah.
That's like what you're hopping on. So like
Yeah.
there has to be a flow and an ease around it. And you have enough of that in your chart where I trust that you can bring that, you can choose to tap into that.
Mm.
Obviously, you have the Virgo, which is like, but prove it, like define it, like
Yeah. Yeah.
clarify it. But that just makes you smart, it's make sure that you're honoring the full chart. I also
Mm.
feel like this Venus in Leo, like you also want to have fun. You want to be like romanced. You want to
Yeah.
be appreciated. You want someone to like treat you like a fucking queen, like, and as you should. It doesn't need to be so like, okay, this is how much money I have in my bank account. How
Yeah,
much
yeah.
money do
Maybe I've
like
been overly, like, Virgoizing my, like, dating
I think maybe.
approach.
I think maybe
Yeah,
because because it's important to you. So like
yeah,
again, like the fear, the
yeah.
logic versus fear piece. I think that that's
Mm,
going to be like that's my guiding light for you. Is
yeah,
not like is it art or is it logic? Is it love or is it logic? Like is it logic or is it fear?
mm,
Because the logic is great. We love the logic.
yeah,
But the fear, we got to take some risks around,
yeah,
we got to give ourselves permission to be afraid and do it.
mm. I feel like that's yeah, I think just because there is so much uncertainty and change that's happening right now, I'm constantly, like, not I don't wanna use the word fighting the fear, I think it's important, I've been trying to embrace it and just, like, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, even just, like, continuing to podcast on my own where it's, like, a very different world than when I was with my friends and, yes, doing, like, content creation that's, like, kind of
You're
unpredictable and
supposed to be doing it by yourself. I
Mm.
love the fact that your whole friend group broke up.
Mm.
Like, and not like actually because
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
sounds stressful,
Yeah.
but like your chart wants you to be autonomous.
Mm.
That's the Aries experience. Your chart wants you to be on your own, taking yourself seriously, being independent. I'm not surprised that that happened.
Mm. Okay. So I think having to just feel more confident in myself and my direction.
Yeah, and your purpose.
Mm.
And purpose isn't something that like we need. It's not like something that we have written on our forehead and like we have to do like one thing only as it relates to our purpose. Purpose is can change. Purpose is fluid. Purpose is, you know, is a reflection of where we are in a moment, right? But I think that just knowing the intentionality around things is
Mm,
purpose, right? Like purpose for you is figuring out like is being like I'm going to purposefully and intentionally like keep podcasting, keep content creating, like keep showing up for these things. Purpose is knowing that like you are with yourself and that you believe in yourself and that
mm,
you are going to bet on yourself. And then the mission around that can be revealed through continuing to find and hold on to like that singular purpose of being with yourself and supporting
mm.
yourself.
Ooh, okay. Any, I guess in terms of like well, I guess, yeah, that I mean, it's helpful for me to my big takeaway with, like, logic versus fear, I think I can see how that applies to, like, all aspects of my life right now. Um, are there any other, I guess, like, cycles that are happening within my chart or any other things that I should be thinking
No.
about or looking
I think that we covered all the big ones.
Yeah.
Neptune just moved is moving into your first, Saturn is moving into your first, Jupiter is moving into your fourth house. That's the 2013 cycle.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of manifesting energy. It's a lot of cardinal placements. The angles of your chart, which have to do with sort of the architecture of your life, the rising and the opposite of the rising, which is the descendant, the bottom of your chart, which is called the IC, the top of your chart, which is called the midheaven, the MC. All of those are in cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And they're all about initiation. They're all
mm,
about manifesting. They're all about doing the damn thing.
mm,
And that's what is being activated in the sky right now. And that's what you're being called to do is do the damn thing. Yeah. It's really like a lot of bravery is needed right now. A
mm,
lot of like betting on yourself.
mm,
This is a chance to prove to yourself that you can do what you have wanted to do your whole life.
mm. And tapping into sometimes I feel like I don't know exactly what that is, or it's like being able to stay in tune with that voice, but I guess to your point, that's like trying to not lean or maybe it's like when I'm feeling scared is when it feels like
You know, the fear in you can be so crystallized and so calcified, right? From like so many decades of being like, is this responsible? Is this
yeah.
logical? Is this the right choice? That it might have like like it kind of can override intuition. So I'm not
Mm,
surprised that you're like, I don't know what my gut is saying,
yeah.
right? Because intuition is something that you have to, it's like a muscle
Mm,
that you have to cultivate a relationship with um, over time. And you have to learn, like, it needs to trust you as much as you need to trust it. Like, if
mm,
your intuition has been sort of like overshadowed by fear or anxiety, and something that I always say, and definitely like great for listeners to know, is that when you're anxious, like, you can kiss your intuition goodbye. Like, your
yeah, yeah.
intuition cannot compete with the loud
Mm,
siren of anxiety. Anxiety, and a way to know the difference is that anxiety gets triggered by something and it gets louder and it mounts. Like one thought leads to the next thought,
mm,
leads to the next thought. And it sort of becomes this like larger than life concept, right?
yeah.
Where like something initially sort of activated it. And then the next thing you know, you're thinking of a worst case scenario.
Mhm,
If that happens, if you feel that, that is not intuition.
mm,
Fully anxiety. Intuition is so soft. It is so like casual.
mm,
It is so like it's not loud. It's sort of like a whisper, you know? It's neutral. It doesn't have an emotional agenda attached to it. It's just sort of like, "Hey, just so you know."
mm,
And sometimes for people who have a lot of anxiety or have a lot of fear, like they don't even remember the last time they've actually heard their intuition because
mm.
anxiety and fear are so loud
Loud.
and so dominating
Yeah.
that intuition has not had a space to like show up or even communicate.
Mm,
Intuition requires stillness, it requires calmness, It requires a rested nervous system or having a channel that allows you to really just know the difference. Like I moderated an event a few weeks ago, an author that I don't really know very well. We've met a couple of times, but not well enough to know like sort of people in her orbit and in her inner circle. And I walked into the green room right before the event and I just got this download. There was a woman standing there and I got this download that that woman wanted to moderate. And and it was so neutral, and it was like and I almost wanted to respond back, then like, "Then she could have. Like,
Yeah.
why am I here? Like, it's no big deal." But it was like this, like, just this very clear message. And
Mm,
then things that ended up happening throughout the evening, she got really weird towards me. She got like very jealous and
mm.
very, she started to like say like these creepy, sort of freaky things to me. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that that intuition told me that right when I walked into
Mm.
the room because now I know why she's acting like a freak to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I know why she's saying weird shit
Yeah.
to me right before I go on stage and I don't like it. I don't want her weirdness, but
Yeah.
like I like my intuition gave me this
Mm.
gift. But I have been practicing working with my intuition for years now. When
Yeah.
I first started this work, I didn't know what my intuition was telling me. I felt like I just had swirls in my stomach
Mm.
constantly. I would call it the swirls. And it was like a churning sensation of confusion and anxiety and sort maybe intuition, but just like
Yeah.
sort of like not knowing what to do or the decision to make.
Yeah.
But through the practice of like sitting with myself, of trusting, of surrendering, of uh, finding ways to calm my nervous system. I have this language with my intuition where I know what's my intuition, I know what's my anxiety. I have
Mm.
generalized anxiety disorder. Like I have enough of that, but
Yeah.
I can really discern, what's
Mm.
what and what's talking to me. So I'm not surprised that your intuition, especially in the moment where there's so much change going on, like isn't showing up.
Yeah.
It's not because it's not there. It's just because it's being overshadowed by some of these louder voices. So I would say
Mm.
that's even more proof that there's more fear there than logic.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fear is beautiful. Like, we love her. It's protecting you, it's keeping you safe. It doesn't want you to get hurt. It doesn't want you to fail. It doesn't want you to end up like on your face
Mm.
and embarrassed and humiliated by the
Yeah.
choices that you've made. But like working with that fear and being like, "Hey, like we're actually good. You
Mm.
know, we're okay. We have what we need. We're like and if we ever find ourselves in a situation where we're struggling, like we know how to give ourselves what we need." Like
Mm.
really cultivating the relationship with the fear to
Yeah.
quiet it a little bit and let it know that like it doesn't need to be on high alert is going to tone that down and then watch what happens when you give your whole psyche a system that allows for some of these other sensations to come to the top.
Mm.
Because it even sounds like your New York experience. There was a lot of stress, fear, anxiety. I need to make a decision now. I need to get
Yeah,
back
yeah.
home. This is not where I'm supposed to be. And maybe there was some intuition, but it sounds like there was also a
A
lot
lot of
of like
fear.
urgency. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think, yeah, that's very clear to me that because in the past when I have experienced like great change, usually going back to my like wellness toolkit of yoga, meditation, all those things to try to like quiet the fear has
Yeah.
been my way to kind of like get back to a neutral state.
Yes.
And I think also like with everything we've talked about, also with the state of the world, I'm sure that there are a lot of other listeners, whether it's their personal lives or just being in the world right now, they're also probably trying to figure out ways to qualm fear in order to be able to like listen to their gut and their intuition.
Yeah.
So that is really great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that,
Oh
Lisa.
my goodness. Of course.
Um,
My pleasure.
I really loved the birth chart reading. Thank you so much. For any of our listeners out there who are interested in learning more about the work that you do, where can they find you? Where can they contact you?
I'm chronically
Yeah.
online, except when I'm with my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm at Eliza Kelly everywhere. And then I have a podcast called Horoscope Weekly, and new episodes of that come out every Monday and Wednesday.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you so
Lisa.
much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Living Well or Trying to. If you don't already, please follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It means so much to me that my new episodes will just pop up in your feed. And if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please leave a rating and review. It means so much for a small content creator like myself in this world that is so saturated now to be able to have some feedback from all of you. As always, I so appreciate you. Thank you for lending me your ears, your eyes, your presence, and your attention, especially in today's world when there are so many other places that you could be giving it to. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I hope to catch you on another episode.